So President-elect Trump hearing from world leaders, including the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump's promise to end the Middle East conflict and end Russia's war in Ukraine. Hasn't said much about how he wants to do that. Let's bring in retired four-star General Wesley Clark, who's the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. Let's take both of these conflicts, and I'm curious to see what you think or how Trump will handle it. Ukraine first. Should the Ukrainians be concerned about this Trump 2.0 administration that's on its way in?
I think there is a reason for concern for a couple of reasons. Number one is that Ukraine is counting on the strong support of NATO, and Mr. Trump's made many allusions to NATO over the years and generally doesn't hold it in high regard, holds our European partners of NATO in some suspicion for not paying enough, et cetera. But they also should have concern because he said he can end it in a day, and that seems improbable. The kind of agreement that Mr. Putin probably would accept is the kind of agreement that Ukraine wouldn't want to accept. And so it would be something like giving up control of the oblasts that are under occupation by Russia, recognizing that you're not going to be in NATO, giving those oblasts to Russia permanently, accepting some kind of neutrality, maybe some restrictions on your armaments and so forth. In other words, setting the stage for Mr. Putin to do another lunge to get the rest of Ukraine whenever he wants. And so that would be pretty difficult for Ukraine.
What about the Middle East? We know I know Trump and Netanyahu, I guess Trump has had with just about everybody. I've had some disagreements or run-ins over the years, but for the most part, you would think they would be more simpatico than a Netanyahu and Biden. How does that impact things, do you think, once Trump takes over?
I think he comes in with a very strong reputation for supporting Israel, and I think it makes Iran much more amenable to taking whatever kind of a settlement they can get. As he said previously, he would just tell Prime Minister Netanyahu to do whatever he needs to do. And if you were Iranians, you would say, ooh, this is pretty scary. And so he's got the credibility there and the big stick that could bring an agreement, as opposed to simply the tit-for-tat responses we've seen under the Biden administration. So I think it's reasonable to expect that you could, at least in dealing with Iran, which is a source of the problem, some agreement that would have a greater impact, positive impact in the Middle East. Ukraine's a different matter. Don't know how that's going to work with Putin.
Right. General Clark, I thought about this in the commercial break, and if you don't want to respond to it, that's fine. But I thought you'd be an interesting person to ask. We just had what I thought was an interesting discussion between two very different Democrats about where the party goes from here. And you ran for president years ago as a Democrat. And after this loss, Democrats around the country are thinking about, hey, what went wrong? What are we not doing? How are we not connecting? Have you thought about that? And what's your view on it?
Well, I think you just have to look at how President Trump has communicated with people and realize that most of the country did not go to Harvard, Stanford, Princeton, or Yale. Most of them are not elite. Most of them don't see becoming multimillionaires in their futures. And so they're concerned. They're also concerned that, it's not about numbers. It's about the prices they see in the grocery stores. So I think it's a matter of really reaching back and communicating to people. That's what democracy is all about. You've got to reach people. Kamala Harris had some difficult times coming ahead. She was tied to the Biden administration. She didn't have a long time. She didn't go through a primary period. She didn't really establish a track record during that primary period. So there were a lot of negatives working against her. But still, you have to look at President Trump and how he handled himself, how he communicated with people, and say there's probably some lessons there.
Yep, I think a lot of Democrats are thinking that. A lot of looking in the mirror, reflecting here over the last couple of days. General, thank you. General Wesley Clark joining us. Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.